Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Biff Rugby League podcast, episode number 25. We've hit a quarter of a century. There's more episodes than I think the age of all of us. I don't think any of us are 25 yet, are we?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Nowhere near.
Nowhere near. That's scary that we've done 25 episodes and we've recorded some that haven't even made it because of technical issues. I think we've recorded about... Sorry, yeah, my fault. I think we've recorded about 30 episodes and you've just missed 5, and then it's sort of derailed us for a bit. But we're back, we're in a rhythm. But it is going to be... There is only 2 more podcasts after this before we wrap up for the winter. You've got today, you've got next week, and then you've got a final sort of review of the season, bloody blah, after the World Cup final. So look out for those 3. Well, this one and the 2 after, because you make the most of those. And then there'll be loads of big news coming our way to you. I would say, has anyone got any news and how is everybody? But just before we came on air, Toby dropped the biggest bombshell ever and kind of threw me off whatever I was prepping. So Toby, take the stage, my friend.
Yeah, so
that's if you big news. Yeah, if you want to tell people, I should have asked that before, really.
I've got some big news to announce, and that's that. Despite me berating the Welsh National Rugby League side all winter, it turns out that we're actually very decent at wheelchair rugby league, and we might be having a semi-final against England on the way. In other news, I'm having a baby. But yeah, I'm really proud of the Welsh boys, and I'm really looking forward to losing to England in the semi-final.
I mean, it's going to be... You're going to lose to us. Samoa are going to lose to us. One of Australia or New Zealand are going to lose to us. So these countries better get used to it, really, aren't they? Robin, how are you? How have you been? How did you take that news?
Massive news. I'm chuffed. Yeah, it's great. It's fantastic. I've had a great time, actually. I've just come off the end of probably the busiest week of my life. I was at a fixture every single night apart from my girlfriend's birthday. But it was mutually agreed, don't worry. I was allowed that one off. But yeah, it's been awesome. I've been to loads of games, I've been to loads of stadiums that I'd never seen before. Went to Huddersfield, that's a pretty impressive ground. Hull FC, Leeds, Warrington, I went up to Middlesbrough and all sorts. So I've just had a really crazy week, and I'm really excited now to get towards the big games, and yeah, let's just go for it.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty to talk about, and I think you've already mentioned the wheelchair game, Toby, so we'll start with that. It didn't start off too great for Wales, 154 points to 6 to France, but like you said, they're the creators of the game, so it felt like it was kind of just going to happen, but maybe not as bad as what we were expecting. USA overcame Scotland in their first ever game of wheelchair rugby league. Which, by the way, if you're Scottish and you're following this Rugby League World Cup, you must be well embarrassed because the USA have never played a game of wheelchair rugby league before. They don't have a world ranking, and you've lost to them, and it's just awful for them. The Women's World Cup has been a little bit one-sided. Papua New Guinea demolished Brazil. England beat Canada. Australia absolutely battered France, and New Zealand seemed to labour over the Cook Islands a little bit, and we'll get into that when we mention the women's game. But the wheelchair game has been absolutely outstanding, hasn't it?
I genuinely believe that it's actually the most watchable product of the 3 World Cups that we've got on, which I know is saying a lot, but I find that I don't lose investment in the wheelchair game when it's a one-sided game or when whatever, and to have it on national TV for anyone to flick across is fantastic. I found that I turned off Australia, Lebanon about 60 minutes in. I was like, I'll just watch something else, which whatever. But with a wheelchair game, I can just keep watching it because I think that it is just the smaller pitch, especially. You never just get it either just completely dead in the middle and nothing happening, or you never get a situation where it just feels like another team's pummeling them because you still have to work it really well in the tight angles and stuff to get to score. I think that I've had it on in my girlfriend's house, and her brother have both been more interested in that than anything else I've had on TV this weekend. Like there's definitely something about it that just like is just so fascinating and enthralling. I really hope that, you know, it's like this is like it carries on to attract audiences. I'm hoping, especially like as we reach towards the final, we might even see sort of like a full house for that final.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gutted I'm not going to be able to get to games. I had tickets for some, just not been able to get to them. I'd love to have gone to the final in Manchester on the Friday night. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen just because travel. Like the fact that there's not as many games like down here as what I was kind of hoping there would be for in all the tournaments is a little bit upsetting for me. I know, Toby, you haven't been able to get to any games in person. Well, Robin, have you managed to catch any wheelchair? I know you said you've been to loads of games. Have you caught any of the wheelchair action live?
Not yet. I think tonight, the night of recording, is the first time that it's been in Sheffield. Yesterday, even on Monday night, was the first time it's in Sheffield, and I couldn't do that because of work. But I've got some tickets to the semi-final doubleheader at the EIS in Sheffield, so I'm excited to see that.
Nice.
But I agree with like sort of what Toby was saying about how it's really sort of seems to have captured the imagination of a lot of people that have not really had much to do with our sport before. I think it's a really good version of the game, and it's really exciting. And I've watched games that have been complete blowouts but still been interested because it's got that element of the kind of on the edge that at any moment the other team could score. Because the pitch is so small, you don't get that sort of thing where one half of the pitch is just not used for ages, if you know what I mean. It's sort of I really like it, and it's just I still can't get over like the skill that these guys have got to find the spaces, and the maneuverability of the chairs is something that's taken me by surprise. Like they can change angles on a dime. It's amazing to see, and I think we might be uncovering some household names for England because they are so good. It feels like there's probably 3 England teams that we could put out in this World Cup that could go on and win it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
Yeah, do you know what?
Go on.
In the build-up to the first England game, there was a lot of talk about this Jack Brown, the Halifax player.
Yeah. Which is weird because he didn't play a lot for Halifax during the season because he was over in Australia.
But you know what?
Really
like watching him, he genuinely plays as a in the same way a world-class halfback plays 13-a-side game. Like he genuinely is like a fascinating player to watch, and like that is like the things, especially like the things he's managing to do, are just second to none. I think the other thing is like you consider like the Paralympics gets a lot of attention, and part of that is wheelchair rugby, but it's not the version of it's not wheelchair rugby league.
Yeah.
And like you think of all the things that are missing from like that wheelchair rugby with like the kicking and the goal kicking and stuff, and to have all that. And I've said this a lot about wheelchair rugby league is like it is the perfect rugby in a wheelchair sport. Like they've thought everything through, and they've got the tags on them, but they don't play like tag rugby. You know, they proper slam into each other. And I just think that like someone who watches that does that will like if you were completely hate rugby league, on grass, if you watch that, you go, this is the best wheelchair product that any rugby could produce.
Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous how the speed and the power that they crash into each other, and you think, oh, that must really, really hurt. But the way the wheelchairs are designed, it doesn't really hit their bodies unless they obviously are knocked off balance and they end up like underneath their wheelchair, so to speak, once they've been flipped. And the speed, like you said, the speed and just the technicality of how they move the ball around in such a small space is just absolutely unbelievable. Names that are just thrown off the top of my head is Bailey McKenna. He's got a wonderful hat-trick for Australia the other week, and it's been all over the BBC, and they've just been like, every time I look on my phone, no matter what social media I'm on, it's popping up. It was like 3-4 days ago. John Wilkin, former England and current BBC pundit, they've got their hand in it. He's been trying it out. Like this World Cup is really captivating. Like everyone, like players from all different countries, leading no matter what sport, which tournament it is, they're becoming absolute box office stars in the whole of, like just every single, just sort of aspect of the game, which is really, really cool to see.
Another thing that that intrigued me as well was like whether the chairs are standardised, and the only sort of difference that I've managed to notice is at the back they've got kind of like two. They're almost like shopping trolley wheels
Yeah.
that like help keep them stable. But I noticed a handful of players actually just have the singular wheel at the back,
Yeah.
and one of those players is Jack Brown, and I think it's part of the reason why he always ends up on the floor because he's just got less points touching the floor to give him stability. But it also means that he can kind of rock a little bit more than the other guys, and I think that also helps with the maneuverability. So I think anyone can find a little piece of interest in this like version of the game, like the differences in the chairs, like we were saying about the exciting nature, the different kind of players. You can be strong, you can be quick, you can be agile. It doesn't really matter. It's fascinating. I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic to watch. More on, obviously, it would have been last night, but Wednesday the 9th, there'll be Australia versus Spain and England versus Ireland, as you've been listing. They will have just happened, so they're not the games that have been played Wednesday are not going to be in our prediction. But we'll just sort of speak about them. Australia playing Spain, England playing Ireland. Expecting Australia and England to win those games. England will then top the group. Australia to finish second in that group, and in the women's game, which we may as well move on to because it's also on Wednesday. Canada versus Brazil and England versus Papua New Guinea. It's going to be really interesting, that Canada versus Brazil game, because neither of them have won a game. I don't think, have they?
No, both teams have been like completely smashed to bits in all their games. So it'll be cool to see how they go. I think the Brazilian side, they've got some really athletic players, and I think in attack they've got a bit of that Brazilian flair, and they've got the young girl that plays hooker. She's tiny. She's a little pocket rocket, and she really barks that team around, and she seems to really sort of like manage the middle well. So it'll be interesting to see that versus Canada, which on the other hand have got some big hitters. There's one girl in their team that was a Kiwi, played for the Kiwis for a long while, and she's a bit of a veteran, and she can really whack them. So it's kind of attack versus defence. Both sides have kind of, this is their only chance at a win, so it'll be everything on the line for them, and that it'll be cool to watch that, and it'll be cool to see how England go against Papua New Guinea. PNG have been playing pretty well. They absolutely demolished Brazil on Saturday night, and it'll be England's sort of first real test to see where they stack up. At the moment, it looks like they're flying and they look really, really strong.
Yeah, it's going to be so entertaining. Toby, like you said, the wheelchair game has brought so many household names and box office stars. And who for you, if you've watched a lot of the women's game, has stood out for you for any nation?
Yeah, I think I've only actually, like, with, other things being on and having to be a football fan on the side and stuff, I've only managed to catch the
football fan on the side
game. I've only really managed to catch England Canada, and I think that I went into that sort of like knowing that I knew the names of Tara Jane Stanley, Fran Goldthorpe, and Carrie Roberts, and that was just from the time when you did commentary with her. Brad.
Yeah,
but yeah,
thanks.
that Tara Jane Stanley was the real standout for me in terms of like a back, and interesting that she was at centre instead of full back. But I think that was just to make sure that there was a backup option at full back as well. But yeah, I think that I haven't really seen enough. I thought that Canada were actually all right, and they were all right. They were quite nice to watch, and I think that it's brought up more questions for me about like, where does this game logically expand to next? Is this something where like you need to be pushing Canada to look at women's rugby league, or do we need to be pushing the Pacific nations to get more involved with it? Is it just a case of getting the NRL and Women's Super League to expand? I'm not sure, but I think that to get to a position eventually where you've got 8 teams who are all quite competitive would be fantastic for women's rugby, and I hope that that's sort of where we end up by maybe 2025.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we look at the women's teams that aren't in the tournament: Wales, Ireland, Italy, 3 nations there that have played women's rugby league quite a bit during the summer and have sort of, I think they've got like a European competition between the 3 countries that I believe Wales won because they beat Ireland 44-4, I believe, earlier in the summer. Italy playing games in Italy as well against Ireland. Phenomenal that these 3 teams that have put on good matches between each other are going to have the chance in 3 years' time. I mean, 18 months ago there wasn't an Irish women's rugby league team, and now they're pushing for a World Cup spot in France in 2025. I mean, you're still probably looking at an 8-team tournament. You might be lucky and it might get pushed to 12, and you might get 4 groups of 3 or something, where you have like 4 groups of 3 and then you have a quarter-final stage or wherever. But it'd be really interesting to see how that moves on. We'll start with our big news. Do you want to stay on the World Cup, or shall we do some of the smaller bits of news before we go into deep diving delves of men's rugby league quarterfinals?
Well, I just want to quickly say about the women's. I attended the opening game in Leeds, and it was a record crowd for a women's rugby league match in the Northern Hemisphere. I honestly can say I've been to a lot of games, and it was probably one of the best atmospheres I've ever experienced. I know there wasn't many people there. There was about 8,000 in Headingley, which is probably somewhere around half full. But the place was packed full of school kids because it was on at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah. And
all these kids had made banners, and they were just really like up for it, and they were having a great time. They were so noisy. And Brazil had brought a samba band, and they were playing away at the bottom of the south stand, and it honestly was the best atmosphere I've ever experienced. It was so uplifting, it was so positive, and these kids were just cheering everything. Like the scrum clock came on the screen, and they're all counting down from 30 like it means something. Yeah. Like they were just that. It was awesome, and it was so. I was really proud of like where the women's games come, and I was really like. I was just filled with joy for these English players that have like put so much into it. They're part-time athletes, and it feels like they're finally getting the recognition that they deserve. And they were loving it. They had a great time. After the game, they were like running around and high-fiving all these kids, and it was just awesome. And I'm really pleased because I think that all those kids that were there have had a great experience with maybe their first ever rugby league experience, and it makes me really proud to think that there would be little girls in that audience that have looked up to these role models in our English girls, and will hopefully one day grow up and maybe play for England, but at the very least appreciate our sport.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be really interesting to see how this game is developed, and just basically how many more nations we can get to play in a Rugby League World Cup. I just had a quick search. You look at the International Rugby League World Rankings based on the last 4 years of competition. There's 19 countries. You've got your England, Australia, New Zealand, PNG, France, Canada, Wales, Serbia, Turkey are above Tonga, Cook Islands, Fiji, and Italy. Ireland are also there. The USA are 15th. Samoa are 16th. Brazil are 17th in the world, above Greece and Lebanon. So you've got 19 countries there with a recognised women's team. So there's no reason we can't have a 16-team World Cup. Because, yes, you'll have England, Australia, New Zealand, and maybe like the Cook Islands or PNG put big scores on these other teams. But there's going to be a lot of close games in there, and you're going to get some really, really interesting results, aren't you?
Do you think that maybe some sort of like not double elimination, but like that kind of like you'd start off with New Zealand, Australia, England, and Papua New Guinea in a group together, and then like how they place 1 to 4 depends on who they play from like 2 other groups or 3 other groups of like the teams who aren't as likely to win, to try and keep the competitiveness in it all.
Yeah and no. I think we've all sort of thought about it, and we've definitely discussed it, and I've seen other people discuss it, is if you've got a 16-team tournament, those teams that finish third in the group go on to like a plate or bowl thing, kind of what they do in sevens, and in the World Series, if they don't finish in a certain place in the group, they just drop down, and you just go and have the teams that finish third go into a semi-final stage and their final, and the teams that finish fourth go into another semi-final stage, and then do you know what I mean? And then they play their bowl or plate finals during a semi-final that weekend of the cup tournament. I think that is a way to get not just more games in there, but closer games and games that mean something, because if you were to win the plate or the bowl, you should be guaranteed entry into the next World Cup. You shouldn't have to go through the qualifying stages. You can have your 4 semi-final teams, and then your 8 quarter-final teams that automatically qualify, or something like that, or is it the 4 semi-final teams? I can't remember how it works. So yeah,
straight to semis, doesn't it?
Yeah, but then your third and fourth will just go straight to semis, and the teams that win those tournaments then get automatic. So you're going to have 10 nations automatically qualify, but then there's only 6 qualification spots. So it's like, how do you figure that out? And for those other nations, there's a lot to work on, but it's definitely an idea.
Sorry.
All right, no, I was just say I think that I'll bring up when we talk about the Men's World Cup more. But like, there definitely is that Rugby League's got that thing where when we have a chance to have an international window, we have to rinse it.
Yeah.
Because we don't know when the next chance for lots of teams to play each other competitively at a high level is going to come again. But I'll talk about it more as we move on.
Yeah, there is 2 teams. No, that's a lie. There is 3 teams at this World Cup, not at this World Cup, sorry, ranked inside the top 16. Who are those 3 teams in the men's tournament?
3 teams who are not at the World Cup.
Yeah, in the top 16, and there's
Malta,
obviously
Serbia, and the other one's gonna evade me.
USA?
No, that's the USA are 27th in the world, which shocks me because they're below the Ukraine, Germany, the Philippines, Norway, Poland, Jamaica, and the Cook Islands, who are 20th. The Cook Islands and Jamaica are 20th and 21st, and they're at this World Cup. But there's 49 teams on this list.
I mean, the Cook Islands have had a reasonable World Cup, haven't they? They haven't.
I mean, I think they'll push up into the top 16. I mean, realistically, you're looking at the teams like Wales and Scotland who didn't get a win to drop down into the lower ranks, and they'll have to qualify, and they're going to have some really tough qualification games against these teams. The third team was the Netherlands.
Cool.
So, but the teams that are ranked above the Cook Islands and Jamaica that aren't in the top 16 also include the Czech Republic and Turkey, which, when you think about it, there's so many European teams that didn't make this World Cup that are ranked higher than teams that did make the World Cup, which it goes to show that, I know that happens in major tournaments, but it goes to show that there's not just loads of development in the women's game that we need to ensure makes and happens, but also in the men's game as well.
Yeah, and I know we want to save it for later, but I feel like it's just a perfect, the fact that we've got so many teams that are going to be competitive below maybe the top 8. I think it supports what Toby was saying earlier about the top 4 in a group, and then you have groups of closer matched teams going down to maybe 20th position, and you're going to see a lot more competitive games between those ones. It's just whether we can support such a big competition, I suppose. Yeah,
definitely. It's something that maybe not for France, but you look at 2029, whether it's held in the USA or New Zealand or back here or in another European country. We know it's not going to be Australia, and we know it's not going to be England, but it can be held, and we know it's not going to be France as well. But we're going to look and see where that tournament's being held. I mean, they need to know before. I think they know by 2024 we find out where the 2029 World Cup will be played. Strong rumours at the minute that, despite the fact that there's no major tournament over on the east coast of America, it might be over there, but also massive shouts that it could just be held in New Zealand only. Where would you like to see a World Cup be held eventually? Where would be your dream World Cup nation?
Honestly, I think that the two countries that for me have brought the most flavour to this World Cup is Jamaica and Brazil. I don't know. I don't think Jamaica is a massive country, so I don't know whether it would be possible to host it there. So Brazil would be pretty cool. Like the style of those Brazilian girls is pretty impressive. It's a vibe that I think would like lift the tournament and take it somewhere new for us.
Yeah, I mean, you could have the final at the Maracanã, couldn't you? 100,000 people inside the Maracanã. Imagine that.
Be awesome.
That'd be mental. There's 3 official rugby league stadiums in America. You've got the Independence Park, which holds 35,000 people. You've got the Railway Oval, which holds 5,000 people. And you've got Sabina Park, which holds 15,600 people. And then when you look at football venues, there's 12 different football stadiums, those 3 included. You've got like Montego Bay, which holds 7,000. Trelawney Stadium, a cricket ground, holds 25,000 people. Harbourview Stadium is 7,000. Emmett Park, these are just ones I'm clicking on, hold 4,000. Prison Oval holds 2,000. There's so many sports and stadiums that this could hold. That, I mean, you've got some pretty big stadiums there. That, like, imagine 35,000 people in a World Cup final in Jamaica. Like, I would definitely go.
Be amazing, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would be very, very interesting indeed. Let's go into it then. We stayed on the World Cup. Let's stick to it. World Cup quarterfinals. We'll go through them in order. Friday night game. Australia 48, Lebanon 4. I was really disappointed with Lebanon. I think Caleb Rajab had played outstandingly well, with Douay moving into, I think he played in the centres, and Kiraz, Morkos had dropped out or something in that third game, and they played really well. That seemed to really link in perfectly together, and they dropped him to the bench, and he just didn't get enough game time, and Mitchell Moses was just absolutely shut down, and no one else seemed to do it. Australia pinned Kiraz in the back. They didn't give him the time and space to run like New Zealand had done earlier in the group stages. I was just disappointed with Lebanon more than I was impressed by Australia. I don't know if you two felt the same way.
Yeah, I think Lebanon like sort of made it hard for themselves and made a lot of errors, and you can't afford to do that against like the best team in the world. But I think they can be reasonably proud. I mean, yeah, they weren't in the game at all, but the score isn't too bad. You know, like when you look at their World Cup as a whole, they were within just over 20 points to New Zealand. They beat an island side that people rated, and they absolutely smashed Jamaica. And then they kept Australia scored the lowest number of points against them out of all the teams they've played. So I don't know. I think that it's been a good World Cup for Lebanon. Probably off the back mostly of Mitch Moses, but yeah, I don't think I'm not disappointed. On the same token though, Australia, I think I know that they're professionals, and I know that when they get there, they will be able to like keep a lid on things, but they just don't have that complete professionalism. They're still pushing the ball a bit too much and taking chances that I know they can afford to do because there's so many scores up. But a lot of the times they're just chasing those sort of like low percentage moves because they just. I guess it's easy to get a little bit bored, but they're just not. You know what I mean? I haven't seen that complete clinical performance yet, and I'm sure it'll come. But it's the only chink in their armor that I can possibly hope exists.
Yeah, I mean, before I move on to what you want to say, Toby, I said when I did the power rankings, I had Australia number 1. I said, what more can you say? They really are the best in the world. We know that. They've played that way and they've shown it. However, we know complacency can creep into any Australia side at any moment, so they need to wipe the floor with Lebanon to stay at the top. They didn't wipe the floor with Lebanon, but they are still going to stay at the top of my power rankings just because... Well, it's tough actually. I don't know. I easily could have put Samoa up there, but it's so difficult. I don't think those two teams played as well as England played in that first half, who then clearly took their foot off the gas. It's not like they made loads of errors in that second half. They just took their foot off the gas. But this Australian team seemed to just make errors rather than slow down, if that makes sense.
I think the reason that like it felt underwhelming from Lebanon, and I think the reason that I think that was because Australia got off to such a flying start. Like if Lebanon had held out for 25 minutes and then the floodgates open, you'd go, oh well, Australia are fitter, blah blah blah. I think it was just the fact that Australia sort of wiped the floor with them from the first minute of the game that made it difficult. And then when Lebanon did sort of like start to hold them up later on, it didn't really matter.
Yeah.
I think that's sort of like something with Australia where it's like they are able, I think they are a team who haven't really been together for 3 years, and you can sort of like work out what they're trying to do, and their passing movements and stuff like that aren't going to be intricate and complex because they haven't spent any time in training camps together or anything, getting to know each other. But you've got to be able to match them for just like out the gate energy.
Yeah.
At the start of games, and you've got to be able to keep up with their fitness throughout the games, to be able to have that chance. Which is still why I feel like they aren't favourites to win the World Cup for me, because I just think that teams who have actually been training together, even when it's just a camp twice a year and stuff for the past couple of years, have a massive advantage over them.
Yeah, definitely, and this is where it moves. What you've just said there moves perfectly into why England are second and the way they played that first half against Papua New Guinea. I expected that to be really tight. I'd said in the previous power rankings, Papua New Guinea have been arguably the most consistent team in the World Cup. They've been the most impressive in terms of where the quality of player that they've got in there. Yes, they've got Olam, they've got McDonald, they've got Johnston and Lamb and Ipape. They're the main ones. Obviously, Reece Martin we know can kick goals for fun. And so if they score a try, it's most likely going to get converted. So you always have to make sure that your kicking game's on top. But there's not a handful of there's not a whole squad of household names like there is in every other team. Like you go through, apart from Lebanon and PNG, the other 6 teams in that quarter final, every player. Maybe not all of the Tongan players, but 95% of every player in the other teams. Papua New Guinea again, for me, I feel like they'd burnt out against. They had such a physical group that when England stepped up to gear 8 in that first half an hour and put 38 points on them after 30 minutes, they were like, we can't handle this for another 50. They stepped off the gas, which meant England could step off the gas, and the game just sort of petered out in the second half. And England only won it 8-6 in that second half, but they were clearly like completely opposite to Australia. Like I've already mentioned, they didn't make the mistakes. They just calmed down a little bit.
Which, I mean, we want to see him like pushing for the full 80, don't we? But if they are gonna sort of rest and try go down the game management route, the fact that they were able to do it without making errors, they still did win the second half. It's kind of like I would rather see that performance from England than them trying to chase that like blistering 30 minutes they had at the start where they were just like couldn't stop scoring.
Yeah.
And force the error. So I think this was like a good, like obviously it's a good result for England, but I think like it could have quite easily turned into just complete error fest, and everybody just wants to get a try because they just get so excited about the fact that they've still got 60 minutes to go and the game's already wrapped up, which I reckon is probably you see in the experience creep through, and Sean Wayne's sort of like guidance I reckon will have. I'm sure he had a big hand in sort of calming them down at half-time, saying, look, you don't need to score 100 points in this game. You just need to see it out.
You just need to go and win it. That's it.
Yeah.
And once it was won, it was done.
Exactly. But, like, how good was that first 30 minutes?
That's
like,
unbelievable.
That was just great. It was like playing on Rugby League Live on, like, amateur difficulty.
You know all about that. You got all of them.
Yeah. Honestly, it was crazy. They just couldn't stop scoring, could they? Breaking the line, and I don't know if it's kind of similar to what we were saying. Like they won it so early that it was obvious the score, and I don't know if it's good for spectators when that happens. But a win's a win. We'll take it.
Yeah,
I'd
definitely.
be quite annoyed if I was I'd be quite annoyed if I was Sean Wayne though, and I've put out my best 17, and I've told them to play at 100%, and then we've just given away, we've given away our best performance in front of a team who couldn't even bother to defend against England for.
Yeah.
But I
20
think
minutes.
that's also a fact that we weren't necessarily Sean Wayne wasn't underestimating PNG.
Yeah,
They'd been
I would
very
also
much.
like to
It would have
say,
been very like Robin said. If they weren't playing England, he'd have loved PNG to win. Like, I'm not going to lie if I say that. Am I, Robin?
No, I really rated them. I was really enjoying their performances that they put in leading up to it, and I thought it was going to be a brutal game. So I was really shocked that they just like fell apart like that.
yeah, I put on my Twitter in the lead up like you'll never see a team who play for each other more than Papua New Guinea.
Yeah,
Yeah,
You'll never see a
100%.
team who are just who are good just because they're playing for the shirt and they're playing for their their family and their people their players next to them and stuff. Like they really are like the best team when it comes to that. So I think it's a bit of a shame that it didn't quite show until the second half, at which point it was too late in this game. But also, you mentioned the spectators. I'm shocked that England played a quarter final at a World Cup in a rugby league centric town of Wigan, and there was a lot of noticeable empty seats.
but it was also the most attended rugby league quarter final of all time. But I think that's just because the DW Stadium has got quite a few seats. But also the cost of tickets was ridiculous. So it was
Yeah.
like the cost of pricing 2 years ago when people brought these tickets was reasonable because of the cost of living. And we go back to it. Some of these some of the tickets for the semi final at the Emirates are ridiculous. The cheapest ticket in the bad seats is 30 quid. If you want a decent seat, you're looking at minimum 55. Category C, which is 70 quid, is only £15 cheaper than my World Cup final tickets, which were category B, I think. Like, it's fucking mental.
but like the thing is, like that particular event was a double header, wasn't it? You had the
Yeah.
England women on before, and then the men. And if you can't sell, like I know it's a World Cup quarter final, so maybe people aren't as interested. But at the end of the day, it's an international fixture, which is a few and far between. England are flying, like they could not have had a better group stage. PNG are looking strong at the time. You're thinking this is going to be like a brutal encounter, like in Wigan, like a massive rugby town. I kind of agree with Toby. Like, what more do people want? I know the ticket prices aren't ideal, but what more can you ask for? 2 games, like a perfect fixture in a game that means something at the perfect time, like 2:30 on a Saturday afternoon. It's a bit of a poor showing. I know we've had worse showings, but I think like I would expect Wigan to sell that place.
Yeah, it's like
completely every single week.
Warrington all seems to be packed out because Warrington are pushing the fact that you can go and watch games there and you're able to purchase tickets through Warrington's website and stuff. Whereas I've not seen any other club do that, and maybe that's where the fact that Wigan Stadium is also a football ground and stuff like that. It's whether or not they're allowed to necessarily do that. I don't know how it works. It's very interesting. Like you said, it's disappointing to see there was loads of empty seats, but also on the flip side, it was really nice to have the most attended World Cup quarter final ever. Like, it's crazy, and it's also the fact that the TV ratings for this World Cup over the last weekend have made this the most watched Rugby League World Cup of all time. But you're also watching three. You're also watching 3 tournaments, so it's like yes, it's the most watched of all time, but there's also more to watch. So it kind of, that's why, isn't it? It's not that more people are watching it. It's that there's more games to watch. So there is technically more people looking at it. But it's not. It's the same people, just multiple times because there's more games and there's different things. Moving
I
on.
guess-
Go on. No, go on before we move on.
Yes, I guess my other cynical point regarding attendance is the fact that, like, I know it depends on the football season, but a 32,000 capacity Bramall Lane was used for England versus Greece, and a 25,000 capacity quarter final featuring England was in like that was the Wigan Stadium. Like, it doesn't really make sense that we won. It was almost like we used these big stadiums just because we wanted to prove that we could get them. in the group stage, and now all of a sudden, like the quarterfinals seem to be one about attendances.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? It's very difficult. But I mean, if it means that people are going to watch, and if you've got bigger stadiums, if England are getting to these games, it makes more tickets available to buy when people make last minute decisions. If they're sold out because there's not enough seats for people, then it's also you kind of want to sell out because it's great because you've sold out, but also you want to maybe do a bit of a bigger stadium in case more people want to go, and you've got that chance of selling an extra 5,000 tickets the day before. Do you know what I mean? It's that sort of catch. Not is it catch 22? Yeah, it's that sort of you've got to make one decision or the other. The third quarterfinal was the start of. I watched this late, and you two had just put in there what a game, unbelievable. You said Brandon Wakeham's having a game of his life, and I said don't ruin it for me, and you were like, no, it's still 0-0, and I was like, how can you be?
That was a lie. It was actually 6-0, but I just didn't want you to think that I'm spoiling.
I was like, yeah, you're definitely lying because you said it's like I'm like 12 minutes in and it's still 0-0, and I was like, no, it's not. This was ridiculous. I was sat there praying that Fiji won that game. Like I was Fiji through and through throughout that whole game. New Zealand again, disappointing, so disappointing. Lots of errors, lots of they just don't seem to be clicking, do they? The other teams just seem to click.
They almost look like the West Tigers of the past couple of seasons.
Yeah, I don't know why. There just seems to be. Oh wait, it'd be because there's loads of former West Tigers players in that team.
Coached by Michael Maguire.
Yeah, coached by Michael Maguire. Yeah, I was going to put in the group chat. This is like watching West Tigers play, but it's not wrong. You've got the best fullback arguably the best fullback in the world. You've got the 2 NRL props of the year. You've got probably one of the best loose forwards in the game. You've got one of the best halfbacks in the game. You've probably got the best hooker in the world in your team. But you don't have decent enough 3/4 in terms of centres and wingers. I'm sorry, but the Raiders, the Nickel Clogstad and Jordan Rapinoe, and they just haven't done it. They just Ronaldo Mulatalo absolutely struggled with the high ball. He shouldn't be. I didn't. Asafa Solomona again, error strewn. I said the same when we were at Headingley when they played Ireland, didn't I, Robin? When we were there, so they just make too many errors for them to be favourites. I mean, they are the least. If I was a betting company, New Zealand would have the best odds because they're the least favourites to win it, in my opinion. I'd be putting a tenner on New Zealand at 20-1. Australia, England, and Samoa, you're not going to get your money back if you put a tenner on it. Like that's how far down they are, in my opinion, compared to the other 3 teams in the semi-final. I think they get absolutely annihilated by the Aussies on Friday night.
Yeah, it was. So I was at this game, and it was like you said, I was just praying that Fiji could see it out. They had it in their grasp, and like you're watching the New Zealand side, and you're thinking they're better than this. And it was like I was just thinking, like, when are they going to turn it on? Like, because they've got that many strike players. They're a threat at any moment. It's just they just need to click. They can score from pretty much anything, and in the end, that's what got them. They were saved by their awesome fullback. And ironically, after we were saying that New Zealand can't kick, and I was sending you guys messages about all the kickers are cursed and stuff, and it was the boot of Jordan Rapana that won them this game.
He doesn't even kick in the NRL. Like Toby, he doesn't. I think I was listening back to it, and I think it was Vossi commentating on the game, and he said Rapana has only kicked like 17 goals in his NRL career across. I think he's doing in the league nearly 7 years or something stupid, and he doesn't kick goals.
He's always been behind Jared Croker, Aidan Caesar.
I say 7 years. He's been playing since 2008, and he's only kicked 13 goals.
Then he's behind Fogarty now.
Ridiculous, isn't
it? He's never been the number 1 kicker, but clearly he gets bored on the weekends and gives it a little go in his back garden or something.
That's all you need to do to be a kicker for New Zealand.
To be able to kick in your back garden. I mean, they've got. I think that solidifies his selection in in the semi-final team.
You know what? I thought they were defensively okay. I thought.
I don't know.
I
I don't know.
yeah, no, Fiji did tear them apart early on, but once that Nakama throw it in, I think they did sort of go okay. I think that they're a very, very clunky machine, and they're just not fitting together the way we thought those players would.
It's like watching the Iron Giant, isn't it, with New Zealand?
Yeah, I'm still. Do you know what I mean? I wasn't convinced by Joey Manu at all.
No.
At times, and at other times, I was very convinced by him.
I reckon when I was hungover and I took that photo, I just passed all my poor rugby league talent onto him. Just he put his hand on my back, and like Mike when he puts the trainers on and stuff like that. It was like that. I just passed all my terrible rugby league talent onto him because he just didn't look overly impressive until the last 5 minutes, last 10 minutes of that game.
Does that mean that his talent passed on to you and you're going to pull on a shirt for him on Friday night?
I hope not. I really hope not, because I don't want to go up against James Tedesco. I just wouldn't want to do it.
Yeah, I think that they might be defensively okay against Australia, but I don't think they're going to score. I don't think they, I don't think they're going to score much. And I think I was actually kind of weird. Like I remember when the game finished, and like I had to wait for the the post-match punditry to be okay with it, because it felt in some ways like Fiji got robbed. But the more you see it, the more it's a 50-50 call on the ball steal. And then
it was rough, wasn't it?
Even in that last 10-15 minutes when Fiji were with ball in hand, they were crap. Like they did not handle that ball well. They were knocking on, they were making poor decisions, and I think that also happened to another team in the last 10-15 minutes of their game, of their quarterfinal, which we'll come on to. And yeah, it was kind of a shame to see, because I almost feel like Fiji deserved that win in many aspects, but they just sort of blew it for themselves in their play in the last 10-15 minutes when the sort of level heads of New Zealand came into play a bit more.
Yeah, definitely. And you know what? I feel sorry for a little bit for Kevin Nagama as well, because that was, I believe, the end of his international career. I'm very unlikely to be playing in 2025 unless they can do something crazy. He's obviously coming back to Super League for the Huddersfield Giants this year. It'd be amazing for him to finish on a high with them. But I felt for them because I feel like they deserve to move on to the semi-finals more than any other team that lost. In terms of even Tonga, they played better than Tonga. I think if they'd have played any of the Samoan or Tongan teams, they would have I think they would have wiped the floor with Tonga and Samoa, because they just played so well. But then you look at how you watch that Samoa Tonga game back again, and I feel like I could watch that. That's a classic. You can just go back and watch that whenever you like. You still wouldn't be able to pick a winner even though you know the result. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, like Fiji, you could tell they were just exhausted at the end of it, and you could tell that they were just devastated. They had it in the grasp and they let it go. And a shame for Kevin Nagama. And I know that these guys, all they really care about is results, but I'd just like to thank them for giving us like an awesome quarter-final. I mean, up until that point, we hadn't seen a close match since back in like round one. So they gave us a spectacle, and I'm grateful for that. But if we're moving on to that Tonga Samoa match,
well, wow. I'd like to echo that from you, Robin. Yeah, that Fiji. I think the wheelchair game, the Fiji New Zealand game, and the Tonga Samoa game have saved
this World Cup.
This World Cup.
Yeah. And
has made us go, this World Cup was all worth it. Everything was worth it to see what we got to see. Yeah. I also want to say, just a note on the last note on Fiji is I can't wait to see that Taruva come on this season in the NRL.
Oh man, if you're a Penrith Panthers fan, you are absolutely licking your lips, because you've got talent coming out of every single orifice in your team, like 1 to 25, or is it 30 mans or 25 man initial squads they pick? But absolutely ridiculous. Is it like NRL 30? Like every single one of them players is going to be unbelievable for Penrith. Like, good luck to them. Good luck to any team playing them next season. Jesus.
I remember that they're Coruscant and Cacaulis next season though.
But I don't think that makes a difference because of the players that are being brought in to replace them. Like, it's I don't know. It's just I'm worried for Penrith. I'm worried. The Coruscant replacement is already there at the club, by the way.
Yeah,
The
Mitch
hooker.
Cannon.
No, what's his name? Young hooker. He's played in the academy last year. I mean, yeah, they're releasing some like.
Hey, Luke?
No, I can't remember. Well, it's not Sonny Luke, I don't think.
Riley Smith, Connor Mason, Luke Summerton.
No, it's not on there. For some reason, it's really weird. He's not on there, even though I don't know. Maybe.
Anyway, moving on.
Moving on.
I think I've just ruined Robin's build-up to Tonga Samoa.
No,
So
go on. Let Robin go
repeat
first
that line?
because I want Robin to take up as much time as possible, so you don't call this a dance off. Go on.
No, I think like if this game hadn't happened, we would be saying like New Zealand Fiji, like it was an awesome match. It was one to remember, but this just like overshadowed everything that's come before in this World Cup. It's a classic. It's an absolute classic, and I'm gutted that I didn't go to this one. I chose to stick out in York and watch something else. It honestly looks amazing. The build up to that game with the
sippy towel and the civil towel, the two war cries, Toby.
War dances.
War cries, yeah.
It was just the ultimate display of like. It was such a great homage to their cultures. It was like pure aggression and intimidation, and it was like a miniature battle right in front of us. It was so symbolic, and then the fact that they managed to just coordinate it between the two of them, and it was like a call and response, and it was just such a spectacle, and as well, it was so good the respect that they had between each other. Like we've seen in other codes where there's rules about how close you can get to the hacker and all these things, and it's disrespectful to cross the halfway line or whatever. But I think it was just the perfect blend of like aggression and respect, which is what our sport's all about.
Yeah, it was,
and that was just the first 5 minutes.
that wasn't even in the game. That built up to such an amazing game.
Was it choreographed? Like, was it choreographed?
Yeah, so they discussed it beforehand. That they when in 2017 they did it at the same time, but it seemed really messy. It wasn't like a call and response. It was just done at the same time, and it was like they were sort of shouting over each other. From what I remember, this time it was said, "Okay, you do a bit, we'll do a bit. You do a bit, we'll do a bit." And
yeah, it was fun.
oh
was
my
fantastic.
god! Imagine, it's crazy.
I was disappointed when they all sort of shook hands and went back to their things at the end. Like, I wanted one of them to just get angry and lash out at the other one. That's how good it looked. Like, it looked like they was just hatred and like rivalry, and like it just looked so like authentically just like fierce.
Yeah, no, I get what you mean. My takeaway from this game was Tonga's spine was just not as experienced or as clinical or as mainly it's the experience as the Samoan spine. In 2017, Isaiah Katoa was 13 years old when Tamalolo led the revolution at the World Cup that year. He's 18 now, and he's probably been the best player in that Tonga spine. Like, Tessie knew, gutted that he didn't play. If I was Tessie knew, I'd be absolutely fuming that I wasn't playing in that quarter-final. He had the game of his life the week before, and to be dropped for Hopawate, who got injured again, it's crazy. Christian Wolff just showing too much sort of love towards his Saints players, I think, towards the end of that.
Yeah, it was. I think the thing that really lit this game up was when Samoa scored first. I think that was really important because I think it kind of shocked Tonga a little bit, and it gave the Samoans that like belief that like, oh no, we are the real deal. Because obviously with what happened to them in the first round, the competition they've come up against hasn't really been a challenge. So I think that it was good that they managed to score early. And get that self-belief between themselves. I I thought Milford, like, he had the game of his life, didn't he? He
Yeah.
played awesome. Luai, we finally saw him, like, the things that he does come off and work for them. I would have said that Coruscant and Kickow were the sort of best Penrith stars that have managed to transfer across into their like respective nations. But I think after seeing Toto and Luai for Samoa, I think we can say that now those two have done it. Those two have managed to carry their form over best. But yeah, I enjoyed this so much. I think that I just think it's great. I think we've got such a great product, our sport, and I think this was the perfect example. If I ever have to refer to somebody to watch a game to understand what our sport's about, it's this one.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? It's you just go and what's your favourite Rugby League World Cup memory that doesn't involve your country, and you're going to go New Zealand versus Fiji or Tonga versus Samoa, Men's World Cup 2021. Do you know what I mean? You're going to put those two games on, and the fact that they're on iPlayer and you can just go back and watch them makes it so good to just go and watch. Toby, from an NRL point of view, Milford has always seemed like the fall guy for his clubs when Brisbane weren't playing well, and the teams he was with, it was Anthony Milford again, not doing this, not doing that. How good has he been for this Samoa side? He's just seemed to bring a little bit of calmness, hasn't he?
Well, I think the reality with Milford is he looked fantastic when there was no pressure on him. He got given a massive contract. He's a bit of a Luke Brooks, isn't he? Got given a massive contract, got made the number one guy, and all of a sudden it was like, whoa, calm down.
Yeah.
And I guess similar, you could say, like in a similar vein to Brodie Croft, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like that, too much pressure was put on him in a 7 jersey. He comes to Salford, pressure's off, and he's fantastic. Like I think it's that kind of feel about him, and I think that in many ways, I think it was a shame that, like when he was at like South Sydney and stuff, that nobody got injured, because I feel like he could have come into a South Sydney team with Cody Walker as the main guy, and he could have done something decent. I think there is a player in there, and it's about unlocking it the same way that St George had to unlock Ben Hunt, and that kind of. You've just got to recognise that a player being really good sometimes is because he's really good at a specific role, not because he's just naturally talented. But yeah, this game was incredible. I think it was like almost the perfect game of rugby. My only issue was I could not believe Tui Lolohea kicked that ball on
four tackle with 30 seconds to go. Just keep hold of it, take a tackle. Right, oh man, I was like, what are you?
Awful for the last 10 minutes or so. You kept kicking it just like stupid grubbers straight into Samoa players' feet. Like there was no attempt to try and get it into like Tupou in the air.
And it's not like he's not used to playing in bad weather. He's played in this country for a hell of a long time. Yeah. He was the reason the Huddersfield Giants, for me, didn't do very well in the Challenge Cup final. He was another reason why they dropped off towards the end of the season. And once again, it showed that the Super League halves just don't have it compared to the NRL halves. But there's one Super League player who played in this game that stood out, and has probably stood out compared to a lot of centres in the tournament. Tim Laffey. Before he went to Salford, he was working on a building site. He's had a fantastic year. I believe it's just been a year he's been at Salford. And he came into this. Well, he wasn't even selected originally for the World Cup, and now he's come in and he has been unbelievable for the Samoans. And if I was Callum, I'd like that battle was going to be amazing. Tim Laffey against Callum Watkins on the right edge. Like flip me, it's going to be fun because they're teammates as well, aren't they?
Yeah, I think he is unreal, and I think that he's probably he's not the unsung hero of Salford because he's been recognised for how good he has been at Salford. But in terms of he's probably done more for Salford being good last season than Brodie Croft actually did, and things like this. Like he actually was probably more of a key part than anyone's given him credit for. He almost works into part of the spine with some of the work he puts in, some of the big plays he contributes to teams. And yeah, I think that he's 31, but you wouldn't. And he has had some decent years, and it was just sort of like he almost kind of got abandoned over COVID times, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, definitely.
He's kind of stuck down a pecking order, and I don't think it was really fair that he he finished. I mean, he scored 18 tries in 91 games in 4 years at St George before he was just sort of abandoned by the Bulldogs, who were in desperate need of a rebuild because the rest of their team wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
So I feel like he is just a player who's got unlucky in a brutal salary cap system in Australia.
Yeah, really, really unlucky. I mean, he signed on a part-time deal, New South Wales contract for Parramatta for 2021, with what, and only played once in 2021, and then signed for Salford at the end of 2021 for 2022, and has been absolutely amazing for them. And I'm just really looking forward to seeing if this is a resurgence for him. Yes, he's 31 years old, but is he going to do what Kevin Nagama done, go over and play another season or two in the NRL and then finish his career where he wants to finish his career? Just fantastic. I'm really looking forward to the semi-final. We're going to do set of six, but before we do that, we'll talk about some smaller rugby league news. T. Ritson's gone to St Helens, which was a transfer we all knew was going to happen, but it hasn't happened in the normal way. He has gone on a season-long loan with the option of a permanent deal. Weird. Really weird, this one. I thought they would have just splashed the cash and then maybe sent him back on loan and then record him if they needed him. But the fact that they've loaned him in with the option of a permanent deal at the end, maybe it's just a way of the way Saints are changing how they're running things a little bit.
Yeah, it kind of makes me feel like there's maybe another option that they're kind of chasing, and they might end up using him as a backup. I don't know if this is something that's might ever. I can't remember the last time I'd actually really seen this happen. Because I did sort of read that Barrow had a Super League clause where he was on contract to Barrow, but if a Super League club wanted him, then he could leave.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know. It's weird, isn't it? Because does a loan count? Like, is he? I don't know. There's something going on there, isn't there? Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the Saints squad, and they've got Wellesby in the 1, Makinson in 2, Hopewate in 3, Percival in 4. John Bennison's been handed to 5. Lomax, Dodd, Wormsley, Roby, Lees, Metaltia, Batchelor, Knowles is their 1 to 13. Really, really strong. Only 2 players in there that aren't English. 3 technically. Morgan Knowles is Welsh, isn't he, Toby? Is he gone?
No. Traitor. No, he's English. No one who's Welsh can ever do that to Wales. So
but I mean, you're looking at that, and they've got 2 wingers on. Obviously, they're 1 to 13. Outside of that, they have only got T. Ritson, Juma Sambo, and Ben Lane, who are two academy products, and T. Ritson only on loan. Really odd. Because he is their only transfer in this year, and they've lost Grace, Amor, Nisbet, Sim, Aaron Smith, and Rio Corkill has not signed a new contract, which will be very interesting to see where he goes.
We fit this Saints squad still wins. Super League.
100%.
But I think there is that issue of, I mean, even you consider James Bell and Louis McCarthy-Scarsbrook rotate on the bench nicely as well. But I do think that once you get you got Jake Wingfield, Dan Norman, Ben Davis, Lewis Baxter. These aren't players who this isn't the depth that we've seen from Saints before. But we also know what they're like for being able to develop players. But I do worry that 4 injuries will be too much for them.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, they have got a lot of forward cover, so if they get full injuries in the forwards, we know that they're probably going to be okay. Like you said, on the bench, you're looking at McCarthy, Scarsbrook, Sirenen, Parsi, Wingfield, Bell, Norman, Sam Royals up there. For the ones that we know, in terms of the players that have played a lot. In terms of their backs, Hurrell's got 23, Ritson's got 25. Dan Hill's played a few games, centre, fullback, winger, can cover anywhere. Matty Foster, another second rower, that I've missed out, another young player. In terms of hookers, obviously Joey Lussick in there, backing up James Roby, and then Taylor Pemberton, another young lad coming through. So they've won their 4, and then now they're going, okay, let's give the young lads a go, bring through another set of fantastic players and just see where we go from here. I think their goal is to eventually just win a Super League title with 100% homegrown players. I think that's what they're willing to do. So
I think something else that's just worth noting, I think that this happened a couple of weeks ago, but I don't think we really talked about it, is that Josh Sim going to Wynnum Manly Seagulls to sort of try his luck at going up the ranks in Australia. And I think that's like a really positive move for him, but also something where, like, I don't know, is there something, is like player retention at Saints slowly disappearing, or do you think that they are going to be able to just keep breeding players through?
yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think they'll just keep bringing players through. Whether or not Paul Wellens and Lauren Fresnel can work together to give them the game time that they need is going to be really interesting. So next one is NRL news. Anthony Seibold to Manly after quite a long time at England Rugby Union. Thoughts on this as our NRL expert?
I mean, it feels a bit senseless. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think that Manly had some weird affection for Des Hasler that wasn't justified. I think that, he kept a job through many bad decisions. I think that moving on, I don't blame them for that whatsoever. But yeah, I do find it just bizarre that you take a coach that's basically got a reputation for being so like rubbish at Brisbane and not being sort of like detached basically from what Brisbane needed. To sort of then say like, let's appoint this coach that nobody in Australia really would want coaching their team.
Yeah.
After what happened at Brisbane, by the same like token, like you have to wonder how big Kevin Walters' network of phone contacts played a role in being able to rebuild Brisbane.
Yeah.
I don't like would. I don't know. Like I think that there is something to be said for the fact that I think Anthony Seibold just didn't have the staff around him to be able to bring in the players that were needed. And also you have to think that Anthony Seibold actually like brought through a lot of players who are now regular starters in that Brisbane team. So I think that there is some positives about it, but I just think that to appoint him at a team which are in a bit of a limbo between the Daly Cherry Evans and and needing a new team.
Yeah.
Especially with the fact that you've got a constantly injured Trbojevic, and there's just a lot to sort of put right there, really, a lot of culture work I think to do there. Do you really want someone who was basically controlled by fan base at Brisbane? Surely you'd want someone who's just going to be a bit more, sort of just a bit sterner, really.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, I was shocked when I read it. I was like, in my head, I was like, I didn't even realise that I completely forgot that Hasler had gone. In that sense, like you see, they seem so quiet about it. And it's just like, if anyone's going to go, I didn't think it would be Seibold, but there'd been calls for Seibold returning to Rugby League for a while because of the way he's worked under Eddie Jones in Rugby Union, and he was apparently not enjoying his time there. Same as like Martin Gleeson. There's apparently big roles coming up for him when he's ready to do head coaching roles. More community. Go on, Robin. Sorry.
Well, just like echoing Toby, like a club that's about to go through such a big transition, why would you take on someone that the last job ended in such an embarrassment for Brisbane? It's surely going to be hard to recruit when it's such a massive risk. I think it's a poor decision.
Yeah, it's not a great decision. Quickly as well, something that we touched on, a bit of community level news. The England ex-League Lionhearts head coach Chris Coates has announced his 16-man squad for this weekend's Festival of World Cups at Sheffield Hallam University's Sports Park. If you haven't watched ex-League, go and watch it. It's kind of like touch but not touch, kind of like full contact but not full contact. It's really, really interesting. But congratulations to the following: Adam Richards from West Oxfordshire Levellers, and Alan Dalton from Saddleworth Rangers, Andy Waugh from Oldham St Anne's, Ben Bright from West Oxfordshire, Ben McGuinness from Brighton and Hove, Callum Snook again from West Oxfordshire, Carl Mercer, the vice-captain from Warrington Titans, Cameron Loves from Brighton and Hove, Danny Moran from Oldham, Des Thompson, the captain from Warrington Titans, Jordan Marshall from Bedford Tigers, big up Jock, Liam Jackson from... Is it Heworth that you say it, Robin?
Heworth, yeah.
Heworth, yeah, he's in squad. Liam McGinty from Oldham, Liam Moran from Oldham, Tyler Remove from Bedford, well done Tyler, and Simon Travis from Dodworth Miners as well. The inaugural Festival of World Cup event takes place on Friday 11th of November at the Sheffield Hallam University Sports Park from 1 till 4 p.m. They will face off against representative X-League sides from Scotland and Ireland. Yeah, this really weird. Congratulations. I mainly want to touch on the Bedford Tigers boys there because they've only played one game of X-League it was kind of like a community game against a team that were just doing some like a bit of like a tour down on the way, and so they wanted a game halfway down to play, and the lads went down on a Thursday evening, I think it was, and went and joined in, and two of them have made the England Lionhearts squad after one game, which is really impressive.
I've never heard of this X League before in my life. I know you said it's a bit like
it's really I've had to sort of research it because I was like, what is going on? It's limited contact rugby league. It's 7-a-side, 60 by 40 pitch, 13-minute games with no half time. Number of players can range from 5 to 11. The pitch side is adjustable. It's.
So how do you make a tackle in X League?
The tries are scored. Tackles are made by a touch to the ball. The ball carrier can fend off and protect the ball. However, they cannot deliberately change the momentum of others by pushing, pulling, barging, or carrying the ball above head height. Tries are scored by placing the ball down over the try line, or when the ball carrier gets both feet in the in goal, like an American football touchdown. X League has two modes of refereeing. In a competitive situation, games can be controlled by a single referee. In a social setting, captain's agreement is the preferred method of arbitration, where you kind of just self-regulate. It's played like...
magic rooms did Ralph Rimmer eat before coming up with this?
I'm not allowed to say anything.
I think it kind of makes it. I mean, we used to play it as like a warm up, I guess, like the touching the ball in the tackle.
Very much so.
But it's just it sounds like there's a lot of grey area about what you can and can't do.
But you can still hand off, but you can't hold the ball above head height. So I'm guessing it's basically touch, but it's like semi-contact touch.
It's non-dangerous rugby league almost, like it's rugby league where the worst you're gonna get to hamstring.
Yeah.
But like at the same time, like I feel like saying like, oh, you can still hand someone off makes me feel like someone's getting shoved into the ground and hurting something. So it's a bit like, I don't know. I don't know. I'd have to watch it and then I'd probably be sound with it.
If you're not doing anything on Friday, mate, head up to Sheffield and go and watch it.
I'm on a placement now. My days are taken off.
No, that's fine.
Well, like I've played a bit of touch and I really enjoy it. So I'm intrigued.
Yeah, mate, go and play some X League.
Top scorer. International scorer.
The places you can play X League: Accrington Wildcats, Chester University RL, Harrogate Fire Ants, Oldham St Anne's, Sheffield Forgers, Saddleworth Rangers, Warrington Cross League, and the York City Knights Foundation. Other teams you've got Dodworth Miners, Heworth, Warrington, Brighton and Hove, and West Oxfordshire as well. So you could go and play it, Robin. Go on.
Sorry to have to say this whilst we're recording, but can you just send me the link to whatever you're reading, please?
Yeah. What on the X League thing?
Just on what it is and who plays it and stuff.
I'll drop it in.
All I can find is the Lionheart squad.
Yeah, there you go. I've dropped it in there. It's in the Biff. It's in our Biff chat on Discord for you as well. Both of you can have a look. Yeah, go and get. I mean, it's a game that I would happily play. If it means not getting injured. I love playing a bit of touch. It helped me get fit as well. So if you're interested in playing, you can register now on the RFL website and you can play at any time during the year. So the activity apparently also takes place in Ireland, Hungary and Australia. So there are opportunities for tours and international fixtures. So
awesome.
Brilliant, yeah. Set 6 time, current scores: Robin on 97, myself on 94, Toby on 90. Toby, you've only got 2 more weeks of this. to try and win, and you're 7 points behind with not 7 games to go. Well,
Got a plan.
nine games to go. Okay, you've got a plan. I won't ask what it is, but game number 1, wheelchair game, France versus the USA. This is quite easy, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, you've got to pick the founders that have. I mean, what did this got? 154 points. I've never seen that before.
Yeah, I mean, England scored 102, and I don't think I'd ever seen that in a wheelchair game.
Yeah. So France for me.
Yeah, France for me too. Are you going to go for France as well, or are you just going to go opposite to everyone and just hope that you win?
Yeah, so my plan is to just hope that every underdog wins. So yeah, give me USA.
I can't wait.
Do you know
for
what?
me and Toby.
I would happily lose if that happens, Toby.
Yeah.
I would happily lose.
Yeah.
I will hand over the trophy with pride that was the week that was.
That means you're going to have to pick Scotland over Wales in the next game, aren't you? Because I think Wales are the favourites to win this one.
You said it, not me, Brad.
So you're going Scotland?
I'm picking the underdogs in every game.
I mean, I don't know who the underdogs are. Shall I look on Sky Bet and see what Sky Bet's saying? I'll just write down who the underdog is. No, because that's the actual underdog, isn't it? That's the actual underdog.
So Wales got beat 154-6 against France, and Scotland got beat 80-15. So Scotland had a better game against France.
But Wales beat the USA, and the USA beat Scotland.
Oh,
I'll tell you what, the win outright, okay? The win outright for the Rugby League Wheelchair World Cup. Scotland are 500 to 1. Wales are 100 to 1. So I think there's your answer.
Yeah.
Who you picking, Robin?
I'll go Wales.
Toby, are you going Wales or are you going Scotland? I need an answer.
But I'm not saying it out loud.
I need you to say it out loud, otherwise it's not official.
Not Wales.
Not Wales. Okay. The women's game. We've got it's quite nice. We've got 2 wheelchair, 2 women's, and 2 men's games. First up, France versus the Cook Islands in the women's game. Hold on, let me just get my Women's World Cup fixtures for this one. The favourites for this game are... Oh, interesting.
I've seen...
Oh, go on. You go first, Robin.
Well, I've seen both of these 2 teams play twice now. And France have failed to score, from my memory.
Yeah, I believe so, yeah.
Whereas the Cook Islands have some pretty cool players. Like there's their centre that tends to play at halfback. She's massive and she's sick ball handling skills, and she's also puts on some good shots. And they've also got Ruben Wickie's relative as well, and she's a great tackler.
Mackenzie Wickie, Ruben Wickie's daughter, yeah.
Yeah, and I think she scored the try.
France have lost 46-0 and 92-0, whereas the Cook Islands only lost 34-0 and 34-4 and 74-0. So they've had a better result against Thingy. I guess that means that Toby, you're going for France, I guess.
Oui.
You're going to really struggle picking the next one, Toby, because it's Australia versus New Zealand. And to be fair, it's very obvious if you look at the betting odds. I know who to go for, but I want you to pick before me and Robin tell you who the favourite is.
Yeah, I mean, as Australia have scored 86 more points than New Zealand, I'm going to take New Zealand.
You sound really disheartened. You sound so disheartened.
It's I don't know if you ever watched basketball, but you know when a team's 10 points down in the last minute and they just start fouling the other team, hoping they're going to miss extra points on the board, and they're going to score 3 point after 3 point after 3 point and win the game.
Yeah.
It's that kind of thing where it's we're not going to win this, but if we don't try it, it'll never happen.
Yeah, I totally get you. I mean, I've gone for Australia. Have you, Robin?
Yeah, I think Australia as well.
Right, I'm gonna have to pick some fucking difficult ones. Men's semi-final: Australia versus New Zealand. Um, this is tough because I really want to go for Australia, but I need a point on Robin because I feel like we're going to go for the same for the England game. Tough. Toby, you go first.
Yeah, Charles Nickel Clockstad, Sebastian Chris, and Jordan Rapiner.
You've just named all the Canberra Raiders players. Not any of the. Is there any Canberra Raiders players in the Australian team?
Jack Whiten.
No, so you don't want Jack Whiten to win, no?
Oh no.
Four versus one.
No. Four versus one. I'll be honest though, this is tight. This one, Australia 2-9, New Zealand 10-3. So very, very interesting. Robin, this is tough because we have to have a proper conversation about this one. Australia are definitely the team to beat. New Zealand and England to both win their semi-finals is 11-2 on Sky Bet, just so people are aware. Oh, Toby, did I tell you about the wonderfully perfectly timed bet that me and Robin put on the England-Greece game?
You did not.
We were sat in the pub and I was like, oh, I've got a tenner I could put on a bet. What do I put on? And it was like, what was it, like 4-1 or something? Oh no, it's 4-1. No, 3-1 for both teams to score 1 plus try in the game. So England had already scored 2 at this point, and I just needed Greece to score 1 try, and they'd already gone close. So I was like, yeah, fuck it, I'll put a fiver on it. And then 30 seconds later, Greece went in and scored a try, and I just had 20 quid sat there. It was absolutely wonderful.
It was majestic.
And then Jazz went and ate a beef burger.
oh, mate, there's boundaries. Jeez, let's move on. I think
beef burgers.
Mate, it was an accident, all right.
It was a massive accident, but me and Robin, we did not stop laughing, and he called her a murderer.
Bloody hell.
Sorry. Australia to win, Robin, was that?
Yeah, I'm going to this game. I can't wait to see it. There's only so many chances in your life to see Australia play New Zealand.
I'm gutted.
In this country, 2 rugby league giants clashing. I can't wait. But I think Australia. I think they're miles better than New Zealand. I don't think we've seen the best of New Zealand. But even I don't think Australia have even got out of third gear yet. They're too class.
I'm still laughing. No, I'm going to go for Australia as well. I mean, they are so much better than New Zealand and everyone else in the tournament so far. But this is obviously England's tournament to lose, according to everything else that you read. England versus Samoa. This is tough because you look at the first game of the tournament and you think, England should wipe the floor with them. But every game that you've seen Samoa play, they've got better and better and better and better. England have kind of not got any better, but they have improved in the consistency that they're playing with. Like you said, they didn't really make any errors against PNG, especially when it mattered. They started so much faster. If they start with that speed and that ferocity again against Samoa, who have just come off of an absolutely brutal quarter-final, then I think the only thing that makes it's at Tonga. The Samoa-Tonga game was their final for them. Like they both went all out to win that game, and I think it's going to make a massive impact. So, and I think that's why for me, I'm going to go England. Also, the crowd is going to be behind the English, aren't they?
Yeah, I think a point I would have made was the fact that this is Samoa's first semi-final.
100%.
But I think I mean this in the best way possible, but the arrogance of those Penrith players means that doesn't come into effect. They don't care about the occasion. They'll take on any team in front of any crowd with anything at stake. I'm quite nervous for England actually, because I think the power of revenge can really spur on a team. Samoa really were embarrassed in that first round, and this is just like honestly, when I was watching the Tonga Samoa game, I wanted Tonga to win because I thought if Samoa get through, they're gonna have such a massive points against England
100%.
that this is gonna be like really intense. But whereas like we're saying about England, they have sort of made smaller steps to improve, but maybe they started off at a higher level. So it's so tough to call. I don't know which way to go. Obviously, I want England to win, but I'm really nervous. I'm really scared of this Samoan side. And
well, why don't you wait and see who Toby picks and then go whatever he does so he can't get a point?
No, I think, to be honest, I think England have got enough. But I'm genuinely nervous about this game. Like, there's echoes of the 2013 World Cup and previous, like, just general sporting heartaches as an English person. I just want us to get to that final so badly. I've got to pick England. I'm just going to throw all my eggs into one basket and go. I'm either going to be thrilled at the end of this weekend or completely devastated.
Toby, underdogs for you are who?
Yeah, before we selected first round set, what was it?
When we did our first round.
Said I think England will turn Samoa over because they're a better oiled machine, and once Samoa have got into it, Samoa's quality will show in the semi-final.
Yeah.
And so I actually can stick by that. But I do think that Samoa are underdogs in this game. But I think that England haven't won any dance-offs on the road to this semi-final, and Samoa have, and I think that that's a really crucial factor. So I'm going to take Samoa because I think they'll continue their reign as dance-off champions. Winner stays on. And
on that note, Bradley and Robin get 5 points this week, and Toby gets 1 if Samoa win. That's still best. I think that's the best outcome for you, is that me and Robin just push 5 more points on you. After some of maybe not the France Cook Island. You might get a surprise, and maybe the wheelchair one might throw a surprise with the Scotland Wales game. But I think you are in the mud.
Yeah, absolutely.
Robin, apologise to Jazz for me. That I don't know why I said that.
I will do.
Just don't tell her and then let her listen to it and see what she does.
I don't know what would be worse.
Oh, brilliant. How do I end that? Because that just turned into absolute chaos then, didn't it?
I think you end it by saying that the next time that we speak, we will know the grand finals for all 3 competitions. There is like such an unbelievable amount.
When are the wheelchair semi-finals?
Rugby League that's got to be played. The wheelchair semi-final is in Sheffield on the 13th of November.
Which is what day?
Sunday.
Oh, okay. That's we'll definitely be. We'll be all right then. We'll be sweet. So we can. Yeah. Next time you hear from us, it'll be a World Cup. It'll be a triple Rugby League World Cup final preview, and it'll be our penultimate podcast of the season. That's really sad,
but exciting because there's look at the games that we've got ahead of us, guys. We are so blessed to have this awesome competition in our country, and just some absolute amazing athletes. I feel like
it's inspired us, hasn't it? It's inspired us to be even better next season.
Yeah, it definitely has. And like I said, there's plenty of massive news coming your way. So guess what the first game after the World Cup is going to be?
It's going to be the Weatherby Whaler Challenge on Boxing Day, isn't it?
It's going to be Leeds versus Wakefield on Sunday, December the 26th.
Wait, was that actually the answer, bro?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I was joking. I thought you were going to say the first game in the Super League season.
Oh.
I was just messing about saying the Weatherby Whaler, but no, fair enough. I was right.
It's going to be December the 26th. I mean, I don't know if it's... I don't know, that might have been last year's one, but yeah, there's going to be games on the 26th of December. So
what you're saying is, join us live on December the 25th as we preview the Weatherby Whaler Cup.
No, because that's Christmas Day and I'm having a day off. No, we've been the Biff Rugby League podcast. I've been Brad. That's been Robin. That's been Toby. Join us next week. I can't wait. This has been an absolutely fantastic year for us. Thank you everyone who's listened. Thank you everyone who's commented, liked, subscribed, shared, commented. I've said commented twice there. Replied to tweets. Power rankings came out on Twitter yesterday, so go and check them out. Reply. Toby definitely replied to one earlier in the week and then deleted it straight away. That
was I tried to record a video telling you off for putting Wales 16th, and then when I uploaded it to Twitter, it only uploaded the second half of the video.
I was like going to reply to it, and then I clicked it and went, this tweet had been deleted. So I was really upset that you just absolutely bottled it. And I was kind of just sat there waiting for you to type something back, and it just never came. So I was really, really upset. But really, no,
in the dark, just waiting.
Yeah, I was just like, come on, reply. But no, thank you very much for joining us. This has been episode number 25. We'll see you next week for episode number 26 and a triple Rugby League World Cup preview. Thank you very much and goodbye.